Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Attractions Group podcast, episode number 48. I'm Don Helbig, joined as always by Ryan Sir. Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Looks like we're a day short and a dollar short, or whatever the phrase is today, because we had to record this a day late because I had a conflict yesterday. But I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. You know, it's supposed to be summer now, and here in the greater Cincinnati area, it's been, overcast in the 60s, low 70s. It's not supposed to be like that. That's April weather, so I'm hoping that we get back to those 85 to 95 degree days soon and sunshine, and it feels like summer, because right now it certainly doesn't.
Yeah, it's kind of nice getting a little break from it, but yeah, I agree. It does not feel like summer right now in the greater Cincinnati area. Nights are blatantly cold, and days are kind of like if it's sunny, it's fine, but if it's overcast, it's jacket weather. And here it is, a couple days into the officially summer, scientifically summer, and Anyway, so for those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. We can be found on YouTube by searching for the Attractions Group podcast. We actually do a video version. It's not just an image that's up on the screen. And you can find us on your favorite podcast apps, Google, Apple, Spotify, and so on. Follow us on Twitter at attractions_GRP. And if you're interested in many sponsorship opportunities, just send us a private message on the Twitter.
Speaking of Twitter, we've had some pretty good interaction over the last couple of weeks on Twitter, gaining some more followers, but some of the content getting, good response, and, people telling us, things like their favorite amusement or theme park, or just, favorite ride, that type of thing. And it's great to see. So we really appreciate the interaction that we're having with you. Ryan, I heard
yes
that you had a terrific weekend. What did you do?
Yeah, I did. I had a pretty big weekend. I actually I went to Cedar Point, and I kind of briefed about my plans for the weekend on the last episode. But yeah, I went to Cedar Point, and that's a story in and of itself. But the cool part about Cedar Point is there's so much more to it than you kind of think. We actually stayed at two different locations on the peninsula. So that was kind of a unique experience, but that was another situation where it was like 70 something degrees there, but it was super sunny out. So it felt like it was 90. You know what I mean?
Well, let me start. Where did you stay?
Well, so we originally stayed at Lighthouse Point. So Lighthouse Point, is their cabins. It's cabins, and I think the RV park is also under the umbrella of Lighthouse Point. But what I didn't know about Lighthouse Point was that there's actually a building for a lighthouse there. It looks like they used it for storage now. I was trying to figure out what they use it for, but it's actually from the 1860s. It was significant during the Civil War. It's actually the third lighthouse to be on that location, and it's the oldest structure on the entire peninsula. So a real lighthouse there. But we stayed in a cabin for the first night, just to do something different. I tell you what, like usually Breakers, I always talk about Breakers and how it's my favorite and stuff, but this one gave it a run for its money. This was nice. The cabins are, essentially, it's a main kind of common area in the front, which has your TV and stuff. Yes, you can watch fun TV on the TVs if you're so inclined. And then, a little hallway with a reasonable sized bathroom, and then a bedroom that sleeps everybody. There are larger sized ones, but I'm talking about the standard cabin or cottage that we stayed in. So there's like a full size bed as well as a set of bunk beds. So that seats, like, the bed can do obviously two adults, and then bunk beds are like probably one kid each. It's standard beds. But the couch in the main room folds out to like a full size bed. So I guess it could seat 5 comfortably. If people in the bunk beds are willing to share, you could probably get a couple more in there. But what the coolest part was is, with Breakers and stuff, it's always a debate of, do you want to go lakeside or do you want to go parkside? Because lakeside, you can see all the way out into Lake Erie. Parkside, you can see the park. Well, with this, literally, if we looked out our window, we saw the Steel Vengeance Hill. I mean, it was really, really neat. But completely different experience. And one thing that I kind of learned doing this is that they have a full kitchenette there. So I was thinking, next time we do this, I might bring like maybe like my little like flatbread indoor grill and like cook a nice breakfast. We brought like cereal and stuff because there's no good place to eat, for breakfast there because you're kind of far away from breakers and all that. But I'm gonna do that next time. It was really really fun. So I'm definitely a fan of Lighthouse Point. Oh, and may I add, by the way, so the common area is in the back of the place. Okay, so when you enter one of the cottages, you walk between two cottages, and then the porch is on the back. Well, the porch faces right out into Lake Erie, so literally you can pour yourself some nice coffee or whatever first thing in the morning, walk out onto your porch, and just see the vastness of Lake Erie and the boats off in the distance and the little lighthouses and stuff. Very very cool.
Yeah, and it's beautiful there, isn't it?
Yeah, have you ever stayed at one of the cottages?
No, I have not, but I've been out in that area, walking around. What you're talking about there, and just kind of taking in the view.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's awesome. And there's a pool back there. They've got really nice common. They have restrooms in the cottages, but they do have like restrooms out there and stuff. And it's one of those things where it's like with the cottages. They don't have like huge hot water tanks. Not that you'd be taking a hot shower typically during the months that the cottages are open, but they say like if you want to take a long shower, you can go right over to by the pools, and they've got nice showers in there that have like the regular big tanks and so on. But yeah, it's beautiful. Put it on your bucket list of things to do up there. That just adds to the complexity of, you think of Cedar Point as a park, but there's so much more to it up there. Just so much more. It's a whole city.
Exactly. Now, you mentioned you stayed at two different places, and I would imagine it's not a visit to Sandusky and Cedar Point for Ryan Sir if he did not stay at that Breakers there.
No, I did stay at Breakers. Breakers is awesome. So let me tell you about this. See, a lot of people that listen to this podcast have stayed at Breakers, so I don't know and need to go into crazy detail, and we'll kind of reminisce about like the beach and what happens there. But I would say that the Breakers, like I'm also like a loyal like Hilton person. I stay at Hilton's all the time, and Hilton always has like fantastic employees, and the Breakers ones are right up there with them. Like they're always so helpful and so polite and going out of their way for you and stuff. I really enjoy that about it. But I've never shown this off on the show, but they have those coaster hoodies with like the little zipper pocket and stuff. Don, I don't even know if you've seen this or not, but I actually bought this wasn't this trip, but I did wear this trip. I bought the Hotel Breakers hoodie in that style. See, there's the logo.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
Have you seen it before?
Cool.
I didn't even know.
I have seen it, yeah.
But it's got Hotel Breakers like on the sleeve, like a tattoo kind of thing. But this is like the warmest hoodie ever. If you guys, the way that you know what I'm talking about is the zipper pocket here. They've got them for all the different rides at probably all the Cedar Fair parks, but it's so warm that you could almost wear it as a winter coat. So, I've been taking that everywhere I go because Cedar Point at night gets very cool on the beach and stuff. It's like jacket weather even on the hottest days, which is a very very good thing. But let me tell you about the thing about Breakers is Cedar Point closes, and the beach and stuff is like the walkway on the beach, the boardwalk is kind of busy after the park closes, just with people leaving. But usually about an hour after, when people have time to go back and eat and stuff, there's just so many people that are out there sitting around the fire. It's like the party keeps going till about 2 a.m. But even like during the day, I've never seen the beach as busy, and they didn't even have much going on. They've got some stuff coming up, for parties on the beach and stuff. I did that last year, which was a really good time. But I'd never seen more boats in the water, people playing volleyball, people sunning, people running around. So it was just so cool to see all that. So it's almost like you feel like you're in Florida a little bit, except for the fresh water and the very cool breeze coming off the lake. But another thing that they did there, and I haven't seen this since the pandemic, is we come back to our room. Like the beauty of Breakers, for those of you who don't know, is it's within walking distance to Cedar Point, so you can be like, I'll bring my jacket in, but I'll drop it off at the hotel if I don't need it. It's not like you're stuck with anything, or like my girlfriend and I often go back and cool off if it gets hot. We'll go back to the hotel, chill out for half hour, 45 minutes, and come back. But we come back and we realize somebody cleaned up after. They actually went in and like house kept the room. They made all the beds and stuff, and but we were like baffled because who's done that since the pandemic? But they did it, you know. But yeah, Breakers is just awesome. It's so cool. You know, it's got the location advantage and stuff. So
Yeah, one of my favorite places to stay. When I go up to Cedar Point, a lot of history there, but a lot has changed as well too. It's not the Breakers that if you went there, 15, 20 years ago, even 5 years ago, it's not the same.
yeah, right. So it's funny because they show pictures of Breakers from like 1905, 1906, and you can see it. Like that main rotunda in the middle is definitely the same. So to put in perspective, entering Breakers from, let's say, the outside, from the parking lot, you come in, you walk past the gift shop and stuff, and then you're walking down this hall and you go into like this big area, which is like the check-in area. It's like the main lobby, and it has like a walkway all the way around the top. But here's something I never really thought about. That walkway didn't do anything because you can take the steps up and you can go to like a different wing, but for the most part it doesn't. It just circles. It's just decorative. And that was a big feature when Breakers was built. I just never really, you never notice. And then, if you keep on going past that, there's the big rotunda. Nowadays, there's like a Starbucks in there and stuff. But the rotunda and the main check-in area, I believe, are original. Obviously, been renovated a million times. But Breakers has always been huge. But what they've done is, every several decades, they tear down an entire wing and they build it up and modernize it and stuff. So, yeah, you're right. And it's funny because I was like looking up, famous people that have stayed at Breakers, because that's the kind of things that are on my mind. And let me pull some up because I know.
Yeah, while you're pulling this up, I want to mention, you talked about the different renovations, and it's one of the things that Cedar Point, they do so well, whether it's the hotels or it's in the park. They're able to update things, make it more modern without losing the charm.
Yeah, and what's funny is we've stayed at Breakers twice this year, and there's a clear difference between when you're staying in the new wing and when you're staying in an old wing, because the new wing feels very modern, the old one feels very classic. Both have the charm. They both look essentially the same. But this time we stayed in like a new room, in the last 30 years or so. But last time we stayed in definitely an old one. And it was like, and there was no like quality difference between the two, but just knowing what I knew, like I could feel the history kind of floating through there. But here's a list of people. This is just off Wikipedia that have stayed at Hotel Breakers. So Abbott and Costello, who's on first, what's on second. Calvin Coolidge, you might know him as President of the United States. Dwight Eisenhower, same deal. Warren Harding, same deal. Helen Keller, I think she spoke at Cedar Point. Don't they have a plaque for that? Like over by Windseeker, isn't there a plaque commemorating her speaking at Cedar Point or appearing there or something?
There's some recognition in the park. I'm not sure exactly where it is, though, but there's some recognition of her.
Yeah, well, obviously she couldn't speak, but I'm saying like she used to make public appearances and so on. Annie Oakley, John D. Rockefeller, Theodore Roosevelt, John Philip Sousa, William Howard Taft, and Woodrow Wilson. So a bunch of presidents have stayed there. So it's like hollowed halls, really. But you got to remember that in the early years when it was a bathhouse and stuff, Breakers was the attraction. In a theme park there. And if there was, it was just to get people to stay at Breakers. But definitely cool. Yeah, you're right. It definitely keeps the charm throughout, and it doesn't feel like some stuff's dated and some stuff isn't.
Well, let's do a little comparison here. Since you stayed at both places, next time you go, you only get to choose one. Are you going to do Lighthouse Point or Breakers?
What time of year are we talking about?
Let's just go with August.
August would probably be Breakers, because one of the best parts of Breakers is all the activity on the beach and stuff at night. And August is smoking hot for that. Everybody's out all night. If it was like, we went like the second weekend they were open, so it was either April or early May, and I I wish we had stayed at Lighthouse Point then, because there was nobody really on the beach because it was kind of cold at night. But we could have enjoyed, like, sitting out on the porch and in jackets and stuff, watching Lake Erie from Lighthouse Point. But yeah, I think in August, I think that's it, because it's the party, while Lighthouse Point is very relaxing and stuff. Awesome views.
Well, I'm planning a visit in August, and I will take your recommendation, and I will stay at Breakers.
Yeah, book now. That stuff fills up in the prime months, but
well, it does.
Yeah.
All right, this year at Cedar Point, Ryan, they've added the Grand Pavilion. Mm-hmm. What happened to the old one?
It's funny because I went on a wild goose chase this last visit here, because I think Cedar Point or one of their fan sites or something on Instagram put up a picture of the original Grand Pavilion from 1904 or whatever it was. Maybe it was earlier, I'm not sure. And I posted saying, because I was like, that the original one that was near Windseeker, right? And I had a bunch of people saying, like, no, it's over up by where Wicked Twister was. And they have no idea what I'm talking about. That's the new Grand Pavilion. But one person said it's still there. They just renovated it. And I'm like, there's no way. So I keep on researching it and stuff. And I'm like, is this Grand? Because the thing, though, is, like, if you have that Grand Pavilion, like, why would you tear that down? Unless it was, like, in bad shape or something. Like, I don't know. It comes to find out it is.
Well, there's that place near Windseeker, that big building, and that's where they used to have the ballroom and everything in there. So I'd imagine that would be the structure everyone's referring to as it still being there.
That's exactly what it is. And if you ride Windseeker, I've never been in their little like company picnic area or anything, but riding Windseeker, if you go up, you can clearly see the outline of it. Like, they've taken all off of the ornamentation and all that stuff from it, but it's clearly there. It's clearly there for the original renderings. And so, for those of you who have been to Cedar Point that have no idea what we're talking about, as you walk towards Windseeker, like if you're walking towards Lake Erie, on your left side, there's some facades that look like buildings. That is the side of the old Grand Pavilion. So that's what's there now. Yeah,
I've gone in and I've seen that ballroom and everything, and you just feel the history when you walk in that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, like the everyone calls it the arcade, but I think they call it the Coliseum there. Where to be fair, is where the arcade is, but that's, like, so cool because that came right around the same time. That was like 1904, 1905, somewhere around there. I'm sure somebody's going to go in the comments and fact check me with all these dates, so I should just stop. But I think that's really cool too, and they've got a big ballroom upstairs with that's they only use for private events and stuff nowadays. But it was, they might have had a roller rink or something up there that was really common at the time. But that's just so neat because we were discussing, especially when, like, Arthur Levine was on the show, we were talking about how the Cedar Point of 1870, 1880, whatever, is different from the Cedar Point now, just because so much has changed. And I got to walk that back a little bit because you're surrounded by the history. Now, granted, like, there's a lot of places where it's like, this used to be something completely different and they tore it down and it looks completely different. But, if you walk there in, like, the 1920s, like, you'd recognize the Coliseum, the arcade, you'd recognize the old Grand Pavilion. None of the rides or anything would be the same. But other than that, I mean, you would definitely be able to get your bearings with that. So I thought that was really cool. That was a good revelation to me at the time, Well,
let's talk about the Grand Pavilion today and food. All the different food options that are available there.
Yeah. Oh my God. I keep on telling people to try the turkey and then they can thank me later. It's literally the best turkey I've ever had in my life. It's got some sort of pesto base to it or something. And, just wow. It's really moist. It's got that taste to it. It's got maybe a little bit of spice to it almost or something. But I ate it 3 times. 3 times when I was there, I ate it. And, trying that, especially, like, they got these fries too that are really good. They're like big flat, they're like steak fries, but they're like flat. So they're not wedges or anything like that. But that's some of the best park food. That might give, like, Aunt Granny's for the running for the best park food I've had. God, 3 times in 2 days eating there. I literally ate the turkey for 2 meals in one day. I got the same thing. Girlfriend got the coconut shrimp. She really liked it. I'm not a big fan of that, but I will acknowledge that it did taste very good when I tried it. Had some friends stop in that happened to be in the area. Got them to try the turkey. They also greatly approved of it. So, and you know what? They added some food options too. Let's pull this up on their social media because they
Yeah, I think I saw that today. There's like 3 or 4 different items that they added, right?
yeah. Let's pull that up because that's worth taking a look at. Because I'm sure it's excellent. I had there was like a sandwich that was like everything's kind of pesto based there, which I'm not complaining. But the sandwich was like turkey and stuff, and it was really good. It was definitely like quality food, but it doesn't hold a candle to the turkey. Okay, so I pulled up. This is their social media post from 2 days ago. So the 20th of June, 2023. For those of you listening in the future, carved rotisserie sirloin steak. Yeah, take my money.
That sounds really good.
Honey lemon glazed chicken drumsticks. That's up your alley. I'm not a big bone-in chicken
Definitely.
guy, but I would certainly eat that. And then the chicken tenderloin, I think they actually had. My girlfriend tried that once. I'm going to zoom in and see what the yeah, I think they actually had that a few days before they announced it. So it's like chicken tenders, but they're very well seasoned and stuff. So it's really good. So now I'm hungry. We need to take a break. Let's go to commercial, Don. Yeah, but Grand Pavilion, the whole area is so cool. I hope when you get up there, your shoulder feels good so you can ride the wild mouse, by the way.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Looks like it's a lot of fun. I'm not the biggest, fan of spinning rides,
Yeah.
but something like that, I think it's not as intense as you might find. Like today, I might ride a scrambler once a year. I'm not going to ride it every time I visit a park, but yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to riding that. You and I saw the reveal of the ride vehicles back at IAPA,
Right.
and it just looks like so much fun. So yeah, I hope to be in a situation where my shoulder is good, my pinched nerve that I have, and I'm able to ride that. But Ryan, when you think about Cedar Point, immediately what comes to mind is Steel Vengeance, Millennium Force, Maverick, Raptor. All those rides, all those thrill rides that they've been known for. But there's a lot of hidden gems there.
Yeah, I completely agree. And as I've gotten older, and it's less about when I was in my 20s, I had a lot of patience with the whole like wait an hour for this ride. I can't do that anymore. Just because I don't have the patience anymore. It's because of the Zoom generation, I suppose. But with that being said, you don't.
Well, let's stop you right there. Okay, you said you don't have the patience anymore. Is it possible? Is it possible, Ryan, that you've just broadened your horizon as a amusement theme park person? It's not just about the roller coasters anymore, the big thrill rides. You like to enjoy everything nowadays.
Oh no, it's certainly a factor of that. Because I will say, and Don, I know you're getting antsy. We will get to the train, but I would say that like my favorite ride there. That's not a coaster and stuff, because I don't even know what my favorite. I guess it's Maverick or whatever. But my favorite ride there that's like especially a non-coaster is Cedar Downs. And I just not only are the horses beautiful, the ride is just fun. How it's a unique racing carousel. It's got some beautiful history behind it, and it's just like it's so fun. It's just so fun, especially because I always feel like I win. So when I ride with friends, I like throw it in their face that I randomly was selected to win this race because the horse happened to stop ahead of theirs, But that one's traveled around a little bit.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, and it's like really fast too. That's the cool thing about it.
What would be really cool, Ryan, is you see the horses going round and round, is to go underneath. If you were to put like a GoPro there and watch all the cables and all the things, moving underneath of that would be such a cool video, wouldn't it?
I completely agree. And I know that when they do the winter chill out, when they walk through, often that ride is completely taken apart. Where did that ride come from? I can't remember the name of the park. Hold on.
Not sure off the top of my head. It's been at Cedar Point as long as I can remember visiting there. My first visit came in 1987.
Okay, so Cedar Downs was originally built in 1921 for Euclid Beach Park.
That's it. Yeah, Euclid. That's right.
I was thinking,
up near Cleveland.
yeah, I knew it started with an E, where it was named the Great American Derby. It was purchased and moved to Cedar Point in 1967. So you've been going since the 60s, so it must have been after that.
87.
87.
For me, 87. Yeah, 87 was my first visit.
Yeah, it's one of 2 racing carousels in the United States. I wonder where the other one is.
Not sure on that, but yeah, my first visit, it was when Iron Dragon debuted.
Yeah, Iron Dragon. I rode that in VR. Have you ever tried that? Like when you put on the VR glasses?
No, not in the VR. No, I haven't tried that. Okay, we've talked about Cedar Downs. Mm-hmm. Another hidden gem for you, Ryan, would be what?
The Sky Ride. I love the Sky Ride.
Classic.
Some people are really afraid of those, and I'm trying to figure out how they work. Because it does just roll off this metal mechanism and then land on this cable. But I've always wondered, if it can so easily attach and detach from the cable, why doesn't it do that with people on it? So obviously their engineers are way smarter than me to figure that out. But also, I've always wondered how, even with its weight, not so much that one, but especially like the ones in like Gatlinburg and stuff that go down mountains, how do they not slip? I guess they just don't. I'm gonna have to look up.
No, they're clamped on there pretty good, and they're fun. But you get a great view of the park. Mm-hmm. You like, just going down that midway that way. They're colorful, so it makes for a great skyline shot. So yeah, it's definitely a must ride for me every time I go to Cedar Point is the Sky Ride.
Yeah, I like how both getting on and getting off of really any Sky Ride, except for the really modern ones that stop, is like, it's either a rush job of like trying to get to an airplane when you're getting on, and where it's like crashing at the end. I always got a kick out of that. I think that's so much fun. But yeah, it's yeah, don't miss a Sky Ride if you make your first trip to Cedar Point. If you haven't ridden it, please do. It's it takes you from one end of the main midway to the other. It's so breezy up there. They do a lot of the plants and stuff below. Like they made out the 150th logo last year with the plants. No, I'm sorry. Was that 2 years mm-hmm. ago? That was 2 years ago. So and then last year they did the 50th anniversary of the giant wheel. That's what they did.
Yeah. Another thing with the Sky Ride, if you want to ride it anytime you go, but if you're there in the fall for their Halloween Weekends event, ride it then, because you get a great view of all the decor that they have going down the midway when you're riding the Sky Ride.
Yeah, and one thing I did notice is you like when the fog is just right, you load in the fog and then you pop out of the fog for a while and then you go back into the fog. One of the best rides I ever had on Maverick was during Halloween Weekends, when the fog was just sitting about 25 feet up, and you could just see the trains popping up and out of out of the fog. So we rode it like that. Mm-hmm. And it was like you're whited out, just seeing nothing but fog, and then it's clear for a second, then you white out again. That's so much fun. I really like it. One of the things that they do is at Cedar Point is a lot of their Halloween Weekends is truncated to like Frontier Town, like the back of the park, and then the mm-hmm. front it's still got decor and stuff, but they don't have like scare actors and stuff. I think that's really cool because if you're there, especially if you go a lot, the whole thing of people jumping up and trying to scare you kind of gets old. So it's be nice to like be able to get out of that. So I'm grateful for that. But yeah, they do a really good job with that event. They have two carousels, well, 3 including a kitty, I think. But they used to have a 4th, and it was over kind of like by Maverick and stuff. But they use it as a haunt now. I was trying to figure out what that building was, and I was like, it's circular, so it was definitely like something. And I was thinking,
the clown, they got their clown maze there, Carnival back mm-hmm. there.
Yeah.
But the carousel, when you first walk in, I mean, that is, it's old, classic, but just, beautiful to look at. And the horses look really good. Did you ride the carousel?
I've never ridden the carousel. I got to do that.
Yeah, that one, I want to say it's 1912 when it first opened. There's been at Cedar Point, I want to say, since 1946. So somebody correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I'm going to go with 1946 when it debuted at Cedar Point. So one of their oldest rides.
Yeah, the funny part is they're both of the carousels they have. I think both of them they bought off just some dude. They didn't buy them from a park. It was just somebody owned them. Maybe that was a thing back in the day. But they have a
Yeah, but
working.
it's a staple,
Yeah,
though.
oh yeah, and
Yeah,
it's perfect in the front of the park too. Like they still have the 150, like the 150th logo thing lit up in the front. So you walk into that with the carousel in the background. I think that's really neat. It's a really neat entrance. Like I'm grateful for the one we have at Kings Island. I think that's the best, really. But there are a lot of bad ones out there, and Cedar Point certainly has a good one. You know,
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And again, on my list, when I go, I have to get a ride on the carousel. So pretty much when I walk in, I'm doing the carousel. Then I'm going to do the sky ride because it's right there, almost to get on that. Then I kind of move myself down, and we'll do Cedar Downs. And then I'll start doing some of the coasters. But I want to get those classics in before I get to the coasters. Another gem?
the train. I never
I
rode
think,
their train until a couple years ago because I thought it just went around the park. And well, first of all, I didn't have that appreciation for train. You can't really appreciate trains. Like, okay, so I always like loved Kings Island's train, but I thought that was unique, and everybody else's train was just chance ride stuff and not really a train. Come to find out that there are a lot of parks with really good trains. Obviously, Dollywood, you ride that, and that's worth the price of admission in itself. But Cedar Points is also coal powered. So it puts out the big black. And the funny part is like people always talk about with Dollywood how at that port over by the county fair, or what, I don't know what they call that midway, but how it puts out smoke. And I've even worn like light colored shirts and they've gotten dirty from it. But the smoke from the Cedar Point one is all over the place because that goes through the park. And it has a distinct coal burning smell too, if you're into that. But let's talk about Boneville. You know what I'm talking about?
oh, yeah.
With the fire and stuff.
Yeah, nice scene. That's really well done. That was a surprise and delight the first time I experienced and saw that.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it to be there. It was very well done. Just kind of out of the blue, here it is, and just really cool.
Yeah, I completely agree. The How long has it been? Has it been there since you've been going? Since the 80s at least?
I didn't recall it back from the '80s, so it was a while later that I came across that. Maybe I was looking at mesmerized by the coasters and stuff as you're going around, and I didn't really pay attention to it at that time. But now it wouldn't be the same without that.
Yeah, and I like how they sell like Boneville pins and stuff like that. But for those of you who have no idea, Don, we talk about this stuff sometimes, and we're really, really good about this, but we're going off and talking about these things, and there's going to be a percentage of the population that's no idea what we're talking about. But so Cedar Point has, a train, and the train has two stops. If you ride from one stop to the next, it's going to be like a normal train ride around the park. But if you go from that stop back to the first stop, like back to the origin, you go through Boneville. And Boneville is a community, shall we say, of animatronic skeletons and stuff. And they're all like in kind of tongue-in-cheek positions. And there's one point where there's like a fireman skeleton, and he's spraying water on a house that's on fire, that literally has fire coming out of it.
Yeah,
And they have gunshots and stuff, and it's man.
I always kind of just call them, and this isn't the name, but I always say there's Fireman Ed.
Fireman Ed. Well, we can try to make that a thing. But yeah, their train is coal powered and stuff. One thing I will tell you is that staying at Breakers, when they start firing that thing up in the morning, you can hear it. But I don't want to say that as a negative, because if you're staying at Cedar Point, to be woken up to like, oh, they're testing corkscrew, which is what happened to us, it's kind of a cool feeling, really. But let's talk about that real quick. So one thing that's really kind of cool about the whole property is that, once Cedar Point closes, you leave. You go outside the gates and you can't really go back in, but you can walk along the beach until midnight, and you're walking just right outside of like a fence from the ride. Like a couple years ago, me and if you guys remember Brandon from Theme Park Predictions, we were walking along that boardwalk and we just ran into some maintenance guys who were working on Windseeker, and they were telling us all about like what they do for it and how they fix it, and what the maintenance is like. It was a really cool experience. But my understanding, and don't quote me on this, but because I've been told this, but maintenance there works overnight rather than early in the morning like they do at a lot of parks. So they run a lot of rides, like just in the midnight. They're running some ride, and the park's been closed for 2 hours because they're working on it. It's so cool to just watch it. That's why if you stay on the peninsula, you're surrounded by Cedar Point. So if you don't like Cedar Point, it's probably terrible. But for those of us who do, which is most of us, it's a really cool experience to be able to check it out and stuff. But especially staying at Lighthouse, like we got there about 10 o'clock at night. We checked in, we put our stuff down, and we're like, well, what do we want to do? And it's like, well, we can go sit out on the porch. And it's like, well, you can sit out on the porch facing Lake Erie, but there's nothing to see. Literally, it's blackness because all you see is a buoy with a light on it about 300 yards out. So we're like, well, let's just walk around. So we were able to, 10 o'clock at night, park's already closed and everything, just kind of like walk around. You never entered the park, obviously, but you could be like all around and stuff, and you can see people working on stuff, and you see a lot of more behind the scenes. Just like they don't they show you a little bit more behind the curtain there, just mainly out of necessity. But that's one of the things I really really like about the whole experience of staying there. And we were talking about the train, and I don't know how I went off on this tangent, Ton. I apologize.
It happens.
Have you been on their Windseeker?
Yeah,
That's my favorite Windseeker, because it's all based on the view, and you can see 10 miles out into the lake from that top of that Windseeker.
Yeah, it is a terrific view, and just that whole setting. From coming over the causeway into the park, and then if you're on rides like Windseeker, just take it all in and enjoy it. I mean, it's breathtaking.
Now, I want to plug one thing, and I wish I had done this earlier in life, but they have an app they have QR codes for it, like all around the park. But I'm gonna plug this app now. It's look for Cedar Point History, and Cedar Point History actually is a walking tour through the app that'll tell you like, okay, go to this point. This used to be this. And I didn't get the app until it was too late. Like I couldn't really do the tour. But what I did do is I just played through everything. And I know the park well enough to envision it. And if you care about the history, and you should care because it's very, very cool. But just get that app and just listen to the audio tracks from it. Especially if you don't have time to do it at the park, and you can really just soak in the history. And then, so I did that the first time I went, and then this time I was able to like just know more about where I was. My first visit was in 2007. So Cedar Point then looked a heck of a lot like Cedar Point now, but there are huge differences, So I think that's so cool. I love when history and parks collide. That's why I love like PTC and, old carousels and, stuff like that. But yeah, but that, speaking of modern Cedar Point though, so we got to join the last weekend of the Frontier Festival. Mm-hmm. And the Frontier Festival is obviously in Frontier Town, and it is food, live music, games, stuff like that. So we tried a couple of food items. We had the chorizo corn. Everything's corn themed, by the way. But we had the chorizo corn pizza, I guess. That was very good. Friends of ours had some of the special drinks and stuff. They said they were good. But I want to tell you about one thing that made the whole Frontier Festival, where if I had I'm a prestige pass holder, but if I had paid admission to Cedar Point and just got to do this one thing, it would have been worth that face value price. The kickoff ceremony for Frontier Festival was the funniest thing I've seen in a park in a long time. So it was 2 men and 2 women, and it starts off where there's like this band that's playing, like one's playing like hillbilly percussion, Gallenberg stuff, where they're beating on pots and washboards or whatever, and then a person playing a piano, and finally the actors come in. Like I said, 2 men, 2 women, and one of the men is the town drunk, and he's like slurring his speech and whatever. And they finally get up on stage, and they do their monologue and whatever. But they start singing this song, and anytime that it was his turn to sing, he would just sing nonsense. And he'd always be like a half step behind everybody else in the choreography. And it was so freaking funny. So that was like one of the funniest things I've seen at a park before. This dude he's playing the town drunk. It was clearly supposed to be his line. You knew what he was supposed to be saying just because, like, when words rhyme and stuff, you can kind of predict what comes out.
Right.
And then he trips over himself and stuff. Oh man, it was so cool. I'm glad that event's working out for him. They did a tasting card thing where you could get either 6 or 10 samples for however much money. Runs from noon to 8 every day. Obviously it's subject to change because it's over now, but they've got a lot coming up. They actually just sent out an email speaking of the beach about remember they had the summer nights last year, but we talked about that, about the party on the beach. I look for Cedar Fair and stuff on my emails and stuff so often that I'm having trouble finding. Okay. Cedar Point Amusement Park. Hotel Breakers Beach Club is what they're calling it this year. And that's when they have like the activities on the beach at night and stuff. So if you're planning on going, this summer, I don't want to read the dates off because I'm not exactly sure what they are, but check their calendar. It might be worth staying at Breakers just for that, because your night doesn't have to end at 10 o'clock. It can end at midnight. And it's a really, really good time. So, Don, you're going in August?
Going to go in August.
And staying at Breakers, I guess?
Oh, yeah, you convinced me, so I'll stay at Breakers this time.
How many, have you stayed at Breakers, like the main Breakers?
Oh, yeah.
I almost won't. I used to have this standing rule because my girlfriend loves to go and she loves to ride Maverick and stuff. And it's all the stuff that I've like grown away from as far as going to a park for just one coaster or whatever. She's still in that phase. But I used to tell her we're not going to Cedar Point unless we stay at Breakers. I'm not doing that.
Yeah. So, for me, it's been Breakers. I've done Castaway Bay. I've done, when it's just a short one-day kind of a trip or something, I've done Breakers Express, which is, before you get to that causeway there. So, but yeah, it's going to be Breakers this time when I go back. But Ryan, let's disqualify this. So you go to Cedar Point, and we talked about earlier, what everybody thinks about, right away with all the roller coasters, but you had a fantastic couple of days there. Had nothing to do with roller coasters.
I rode very few roller coasters. I mean, I was lucky, and it's like any other park where you can kind of like you can play the game and figure out like, okay, this will probably be dead in the morning, so let's go there first thing and stuff. So we got our ride on Maverick. We got our ride on Millennium Force. We rode Gemini. Gemini's hard to get now. Gemini it was his birthday over the weekend, by the way. It turned 45 on Saturday.
45 years old. Yeah, hard to believe it's been around that long. Now, I remember when that debuted and how big a news it was in the Cincinnati area. It was on all the channels. Back then there was only 3 channels. There was ABC, NBC, and CBS. But yeah, it was, that was one of my first times really hearing about Cedar Point, was seeing the Gemini commercials back then.
Yeah, and so we got to ride their Windseeker. So Windseeker's hard to get there because obviously rides don't operate in high winds. That place has a propensity for high winds. So it's usually open several hours a day. It's not like it has downtime, like it's broken. But if you see it open, ride it, because the view up there is just astounding. I haven't ridden there at night. I'm going to try that.
Oh, that's a great night ride.
God, it is at the other at Dominion and Kings Island. It's good. I haven't been at the one at Carowinds, or where's the other one? Worlds of Fun nowadays. Anyway, yeah. So, we rode very, very little. The parks are very busy. It is prime season, and we had the time of our lives without even worrying about it. Granted, we have the luxury of going several times a year. Not everybody has that, but I like how it's like I can go to a park and not necessarily ride much, even for a few days, and still like feel like I did a lot.
Yeah, like I said, it just sounds like you had just a phenomenal time, and it wasn't based on I got to get on all these rides. It was just about taking it in and enjoying the different experiences the park has to offer, and it's a lot. You talk about all those hidden gems, all the food. Definitely, and then just the accommodations, or just staying in the cabin or staying at Breakers. Not even in the park, but you're still having a good time.
Yeah, honestly, like, Cedar Point itself as a park is great, but Cedar Point, the experience, the entire peninsula is, I mean, that's a top 3 parks for me. Just between the park, either the Lighthouse Point or Breakers, the beach. It's just wonderful. Their water park's really good too, by the way. I always shunned it, and then Aaron used to wanted to go, so we did, and they've got some great stuff there. It's really cool.
They do. They do. You just don't hear about it because it gets overshadowed by Steel Vengeance and Millennium Force. But yeah, if you're going to be up there, definitely make the water park part of your experience.
Awesome. Yeah, and for those of you who are still listening, thank you, because I've rambled for 45 minutes. But tweet at us if you've been to Cedar Point. Tell us what your favorite, let's say your favorite non-coaster there is. What's your favorite thing to do? Whether it's the beach, is it to ride Windseeker or whatever? Because it's the roller coaster capital of the world. Okay, cool. We can take that. But there's other stuff to do. We want to hear that. What's your favorite thing to do at Cedar Point, the entire peninsula? And if you haven't been there, tell us what looks cool to you. At attractions_GRP. Very nice. Don, what do we have going on now?
Ryan, it is time for the Pick 6.
Yay, Pick 6. All right.
And to get it started,
that's you.
Ryan, Busch Gardens Tampa surprised its fans this week with an all-new web series called Wild Encounters. So if you've not been to Busch Gardens Tampa, a lot of wildlife and things there. But I thought this was really cool, what they were doing. It's a good way to engage their audience. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I like how they're doing the thing where this is all marketing. I'm sure there's a conservation and a message element to it too. But a lot of it has to do with the fact that, I haven't been to Busch Gardens in 2 years, and God, I miss being there because now I feel like Busch Gardens is in my living room with this web series. So brilliant marketing. Cool move by the park, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I'm enjoying it.
When was the last time you were at Busch Gardens, Tampa?
Right before the pandemic.
Really?
Yep. So it was 2020. Yeah, right before the pandemic. It was coming. Everybody knew it was coming. Things were starting to shut down. But I was able to get it in before everything shut down.
I actually remember that. You went to Disney too, right?
Went to Disney too, yes.
I remember you saying like, well, I'm either going to get it now or I'm not going to get it, because if I'm going to get it anywhere, it's going to be at Disney World.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got hundreds of thousands of people, and then I kind of thought, it's probably going to be now, or, I'll be able to protect myself and, stay indoors and that, and I wasn't going to get it. So, but I mean, that was a fun trip. Busch Gardens is one of my favorite parks. I mean, just a beautiful setting. I like looking at, the alligators and some of the other wildlife that is there, and they've got some fun rides and good food. So looking forward to getting back there at some point. Just don't know where I'm going to fit it in right now.
You don't have to answer this for political reasons, but do you like Tampa or Williamsburg better?
For me, Tampa.
Yeah.
Just because of the things I mentioned. Yeah, just seeing like the alligators and I love Montu. It's a great ride. I like SheiKra. Great ride. I love the barbecue that's right by SheiKra. So there's a lot of reasons for me to, to give Tampa the edge. And that's just, for me, but, love Williamsburg too. I mean, it's beautiful Loch Ness Monster, just the scenery there. So a lot to like about both parks.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to pick one, I would say Williams. I like Tampa a lot too. Tampa's got the better rides, I'd say. But the cool part about Williamsburg is I love that Rhine River, how everything kind of sits in the valley. And,
the setting's great there.
Yeah. The Rhine River, I think, is a lake, if I'm not mistaken. That's not because it's artificial, I think. But, you can take like boat tours of it and stuff. And there's so many rides like interact with it. It's just beautiful. Both of those parks are just amazing. All right. Let's go with number 2. So Ace, our friends at Ace, American Coaster Enthusiasts, they're having their big Coaster Con event. It's the 45th. It's about halfway through now. And they've had over 1,000 people attending with 500 first-timers. It started off at Dollywood. I believe they're at Carowinds now. Have you been following some of the Acers on social?
Oh, yeah, exactly. I've been experiencing this event vicariously through all the social posts that I'm seeing. Just some great content that's been put out there by the ACE members. Everybody, just really talking about what a great time they had at Dollywood, the hospitality. They had some inclement weather, but it didn't impact, everybody's experience there. They still had a great time. A lot of camaraderie, people meeting new people, like-minded people all coming together. It's just great to see Ace have that kind of a turnout. They've had, that run with the pandemic where, couldn't do it in 2020. It took a little bit of time to rebuild to where, everybody's ready to travel again. But you put that many people in, I don't care what park you're at, into an event. It just it has to be an amazing time for everybody with all the different activities and things that they've been doing. I was looking at posts about the photo contest they had. Um, a friend of mine, Dave Jackson, has been involved with that for years, overseeing that at every con, and just some great photos in that people were sharing. But again, I get to experience it vicariously through everyone's posts. So keep it coming. I want to see what's going on at Cara once you get there and get going with that.
Did you see what Dollywood did? That's like the coolest thing ever. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, there's a lot of things they did during this.
Well,
event.
I'm not saying
I know they had
Dolly showing up, but they'd made the CoasterCon logo with the drones for their night show.
Yes, I saw that. Really nice touch.
I thought that I
really
would have
nice touch.
like back when I was running KI Central. Like, I mean, they didn't have drones back then, but like we had about 3 KIC days. If we were just doing fun fireworks in 50 and the KIC logo, you'd be cleaning up the midway after me because I would have dropped something.
Yeah, and they knew nothing about that. So that was a surprise and a delight. So very, a great touch. Hospitality, off the charts. Got the event off to a great start. They did have inclement weather, but nobody cared. They're all having a great time.
Yeah, it's pouring at Carowinds now too, from what I understand. But everyone's talking about but that's a story to tell. They're gonna have fun,
Yeah, exactly. And everybody that they met for the first time at Dollywood. Now, if they're having rain delays and that at Carowinds, they're all still going to sit down and just talk, get to know each other better. And just have fun just talking about their favorite coasters, their favorite parks, what they're liking about the event. But it's just really great to see the turnout that Ace had.
Yeah, I completely agree. So,
all right,
what's next?
Moving on. Solar powered roller coasters are coming to Six Flags Magic Mountain, otherwise known to some as Wally World. It's an undertaking that will be California's largest solar energy project and the world's largest renewable energy site by a for-profit organization. So what were your thoughts when you heard about this story, Ryan?
So it had the same thoughts that I always have, and I've always been curious about this, and I'm not going to ask you because this is so out of your wheelhouse, but I've always wondered how much electricity it takes to run a roller coaster. Apparently solar panels will do it though, so it can't be a crazy amount, right?
No, and what I saw is just it's something like 3,000. It'd be like the electric bill for 3,000 houses. Just to fire that up for a day.
So one house is electric bill for 3,000 houses over the course of one day.
One day, yeah, that's how much power and everything that a park of that size would probably use.
Okay, the whole park, not just one coaster. Because I've always, I'm not good enough, and I don't know enough to do the math, but I've always wondered about especially the old LIM launch coasters. I wonder what it costs to launch a train. It's got to be an amount that's more than a few cents, but nowadays they're so efficient that it probably isn't. It's probably very cheap, but I've always been curious about that. But it's cool, yeah. Solar panels, it's renewable and stuff. So hats off to them for that. But very, very nice.
Don't know how many parking spaces they're going to lose doing this, but that was one of the it's going to go in the parking lot. So
I know that some places around the world have they build the solar panels above the parking lot, so people actually park in the shade of them. That could be nice there, but that would be expensive. So I don't know. That would be pretty big for a for a project. Okay. Anyway, so let's move back to Dollywood for number 4. Okay, number 4. So Dollywood's newest resort is about to start taking reservations. So Heartsong Lodge and Resort, June 26th, 2023 is when they start taking reservations, and it's going to begin on November 3rd. It's going to open on November 3rd, and it's going to be themed to the Great Smoky Mountains, 302 rooms, all the amenities you can imagine, spa, restaurant, and so on. I actually took a survey about the names that they were thinking about using. There's probably some sort of confidentiality to it, and I don't remember, but they had some interesting names for the restaurant. It was like something like the Gathering Space or something like that. But I really like that. Don, are you a cabin person when you go to Pigeon Forge, or do you stay at the hotels?
Yes.
I've never done that.
Cabin all the way.
Yeah, but we stayed at Dreammore back in March, and that was a wonderful experience, you know. But I tell you what, so there are some perks to it. So there's a lot going on. They have live entertainment and stuff. Like they have like I guess it's a fiddle since it's in the South. They have like a violin player. They have Dolly's lemonade. Like Dolly has her own recipe, and they give that out for free. But you do get the time saver, the one-time use time saver. So you can go to each ride one time, and you get the preferred parking, which is worth more than all the money in the world at Dollywood with their parking situation. But that's kind of cool. One thing that we, speaking of, being able to, when we stay at Breakers, but that was nice being able to like bring our jackets in, knowing it was going to get warm later, and be able to walk out to the car and put it in the car and so on. But, when's your next trip to Dollywood, Don?
In August. A lot of things going on.
Yeah, I was going to say you're going to use all your vacation time up between Cedar Point. Then again, I went to Cedar Point 1 week. 2 weeks later, I went to Dollywood, and then 2 weeks later, I went back to Cedar Point.
Well, I can spread it out. So, when you're talking about these kind of trips, you're only taking a couple of days. If you leave on a Wednesday night, you take the vacation day Thursday, Friday. You're there Saturday, come back Sunday. So it's like mini vacations. Just do multiple ones of those, get a lot of different places in when you do it that way.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. So this past weekend, as of the time of this recording, was a holiday weekend. So we left Thursday night. We stayed at Lighthouse Thursday night. We got there late. Stayed at Breakers Friday and Saturday. Came home Sunday. And then the cool part is I still got the buffer day because Monday was Juneteenth. So I got that off work. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of cool. So yeah, I kind of do the same thing. I take a Friday off, so it's like a 3-day weekend, and we can leave Thursday night when we do either Dollywood or Cedar Point. But we might be doing like a big Florida trip for like 10 days. So I've got to ration something,
Yeah, I got to get back to those kind of trips too, where I am at Florida for 7, 10, 14 days.
Yeah. I'm not great about like leaving for more than a week. After about a week, I get antsy and I want to go back to work. I know that's odd, but so Aaron has not been to any Disney property except for Wide World of Sports, and I don't know if you were there when we went to Disney Springs or did she even? Regardless, she's been to Disney Springs and she's been to Wide World of Sports, but she's never been to an actual Disney park. So that's going to be a first for her, as well as Horror Nights. I've been there once, but she's never been, so that's really exciting.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. What's up next?
All right, moving on. Number 5, Worlds of Fun in Kansas City. It begins its 50 Nights of Fire celebration this weekend. That'll start on Saturday. It features pyrotechnics, drones, a musical soundtrack, and a scrapbook of memories. The park former Kansas City Chiefs owner, the late Lamar Hunt, he was the one that created Worlds of Fun back when it opened in 1973. Just a treasure trove of memories that guests there have, like, any other park that's been around for 50 years. So this should be a pretty cool, show, especially, with drones being incorporated into it.
How can you get wrong with drones?
Well, you can't.
Exactly. So I've got friends that were there. They did it like a lot of other parks do when it starts one date, but they actually do a run through like the night before. I think it was a situation like that. But they said that very cool. A lot of the graphics and stuff were the same as Fun Fireworks in 50, but that's because a lot of the history intermingles. But does it have original soundtrack? I never heard that. Do you know?
Just a musical soundtrack is all I've heard that it has right now. But it sounds like it's going to be, really good. Something that, guests that have been tending that park over the past 50 years to kind of show that they've not seen before. So that should be good. And it's just, a great year for Worlds of Fun with their 50th. They're doing a lot of fun things. They just opened Zambezi Zinger, and the guests that I've heard, what I've seen on social, they seem to really enjoy the ride. I have a couple of friends that live in Kansas City, and they said it's a lot of fun. You get off the ride, you want to get right back in line and do it again. So that's great to hear. And hearing good things about the food. So looks like the 50th is off to a good start at Worlds of Fun. Ryan, what's
Well,
next?
if there's one thing that Cedar Fair does very well, it's 50th and 150th celebrations. So if you're going to a celebration at Cedar Fair Park and it's divisible by 50, you're in good hands. So, yeah. So last one. So I'm going to end this on a down note a little bit, but for those of you who don't know, Europa Park experienced a fire. And it's starting to reopen now. So the story itself, this is from the AP out of Berlin, but Germany's biggest theme park will reopen to visitors Tuesday after a large fire the day before. The day before a fire. Sorry, this is translated, so it's not perfect. But the fire sent a dense plume of black smoke billowing out of the sky. Europa Park in the town of Rust, near the French border, was to open with only minor restrictions after the blaze Monday, but the German news agency had reported that it's going to be delayed till Tuesday. The fire broke out in the control room for an attraction on Monday afternoon. At the time, 25,000 people were in the park. Fire alarms functioned properly. The park was evacuated. 450 firefighters fought the blaze. So, I'm not seeing any report of people being hurt or killed. This is just stuff. But with that being said, that's a lot of damage. That is a real bummer, especially because that's the golden ticket winner, best park in the world, and now it's a singe. The fires used to happen a lot at amusement parks. I'm glad that's not a thing anymore, aren't you?
Yeah, glad that that's not a thing like you just mentioned. But that beautiful park, Europa. I would hope to get there at some point. Hear from a lot of friends, especially those in ACE that have gone there for different events, and they love it. So yeah, it's kind of it's sad to see those kind of stories when something like that happens.
Yeah, but it's also kind of nice to see the stories about reopening and stuff. So, as Dolly always says, if you want to see the rainbow, you have to weather the storm, or something along those lines.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, Europa Park is. It's got the shows of Disney, but the rides of Cedar Point, from what I've heard. So that's a bummer, but they're reopening. All right, so that was the pick six. And lots about Cedar Point, about all sorts of stuff today. We almost didn't get, for those of you who are watching, this is an hour later than we normally recorded because Skype didn't play well today, which is the story of our lives on this podcast. But Don, do you have any final words of wisdom?
No, just really enjoyed, hearing about your experience at Cedar Point, Ryan. Sounds like you had a great time, and, I'm looking forward to my visit in August and, trying out some of those food items that you mentioned and doing all those hidden gems.
Ah, perfect. Yeah, walk around the park and experience the history. All right. So for those of you watching the YouTube version, thank you. If you prefer audio, then search for the Attractions Group podcast on your favorite podcast apps. Follow us on Twitter at attractions_GRP. And if you're interested in sponsorship opportunities, give us a shout through the private messages on Twitter and we'll get you set up. So thank you, everybody. We will see you next week.